new cadre of Democrats, the fresh faces, so fresh, so face. And usually we talk in this context about Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. Don't worry, we'll get to her in just a second. But she is not the fresh face who was making waves over the weekend. Instead, the fresh face making waves over the weekend was blatant anti-Semite Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, who has indeed been an anti-Semite for years upon years upon years. And it's not like a big secret. You know, what's hilarious is that the same media that will suggest the entire Republican Party is anti-Semitic because Donald Trump was once close with some people who themselves were close with the alt-right. The same media that will suggest that the entire Republican Party by a wide swath is anti-Semitic because of Steve King, who, by the way, is actually pro-Israel. That same media will suggest that the Democratic Party has no problem with anti-Semitism at all. They're just asking the hard questions. They're just asking the hard questions. This is something that Dave Weigel of the Washington Post tweeted out about Ilhan Omar. So let's start from the beginning. Ilhan Omar's record. Okay, so Ilhan Omar back in 2012 tweeted that Israel was, quote unquote, hypnotizing the world. And then she spent years defending that tweet, suggesting there was nothing wrong with the tweet. And then in 2013, she gave an interview to a person who called Israel the Jewish ISIS and compared Hamas to Holocaust victims. That was in 2013. In that same interview, Omar compared the United States military to Al-Qaeda. The account AG Conservative has a good summary of all of this over at Twitter. At her inauguration, Omar celebrated with Linda Sarsour, who herself is a blatant and ridiculous anti-Semite. She has come out as a supporter of the anti-Semitic BDS movement, which is boycott, divest, and sanction Israel. Leaders of that movement have been tied to terrorist groups, as in this week. In late January, Omar argued that Israel cannot be considered a democracy because it is Jewish, which is insane, since Muslims have more rights in Israel than anywhere else in the Middle East. And by the way, there are plenty of democratic countries that have established state religions. And now she comes out and suggests that the reason that Republicans support Israel is because they're being paid off. So she tweeted a couple of things over the weekend. Here is what she tweeted. First, she tweeted, let me find the first tweet. The first tweet was in response to Glenn Greenwald, who himself is a rabid anti-Israel anti-Semite. He's a self-hating Jew. He wrote, GOP leader Kevin McCarthy threatens punishment for Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib over their criticisms of Israel. It's stunning how much time U.S. political leaders spend defending a foreign nation, even if it means attacking free speech rights of Americans. Nobody is attacking the free speech rights of Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. They're sitting in Congress. They're sitting in Congress. They have not had their free speech rights violated. And yet, there's Glenn Greenwald suggesting that all of these Republicans are doing something deeply wrong by mentioning Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, both of whom happen to be radical anti-Semites. So Ilhan Omar tweeted out, quote, "It's all about the Benjamins, baby," with a little music symbol. Now, as a Jew, one of the oft-used anti-Semitic tropes, I mean, this has been true for thousands of years, is that the Jews control the monetary systems with their shekels, that the Jews are an evil, nefarious force behind world events spreading around money, and that the reason that people support the Jews is because they've been corrupted by the Jew gold. It's been the Jew gold behind Republican support for the state of Israel, which, of course, is a complete lie. The vast majority of Americans support Israel and support Jews because they're not anti-Semitic and because they recognize that Israel is fighting against some of the worst people on planet Earth. And it isn't really a hard choice when you have a choice between democratic country that respects individual rights and evil Islamist dictatorship that tries to murder civilians in their bed, right? Not a hard choice for most Americans. Very hard choice for a lot of Democrats, apparently. Ilhan Omar, though, suggests that the reason Republicans support Israel is because they're being paid off by the Jew gold. So she tweets that out. It's all about the Benjamins, baby. And then somebody asked for clarification. That'd be Batya Ungar-Sargon. Now, I know Batya. Nice enough lady. She and I have had a couple of email exchanges. I've written a couple of columns for The Forward, where she's the editor. The Forward is a very, very left-wing Jewish magazine. They are more than happy to cover for anti-Semites, so long as those anti-Semites can put a thin veneer of social justice over their anti-Semitism. Batya has spent years trying to pretend that Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and AOC, or at least months, trying to pretend that these three are not, in fact, anti-Semites or in league with anti-Semites. And she bends over backwards to use moderate language in response to anti-Semitism from these three. So Batya tweeted out, quote, "Would love to know who Ilhan thinks is paying American politicians to be pro-Israel, though I think I can guess. Bad form, Congresswoman. That's the second anti-Semitic trope you've tweeted." Okay, which again is a pretty weak way of putting this. Bad form. Bad form. You think that Batya was saying bad form about Steve King? You think Batya was saying bad form about Donald Trump after Charlottesville? None of the folks on the left, it was funny. Their response was basically, well, I wish she wouldn't use that language. It wasn't, I wish she would stop being a rabid anti-Semite who hates Jews. It wasn't, maybe we shouldn't have elected somebody like this. It wasn't, maybe we should take her off the House Foreign Affairs Committee where Ilhan Omar currently sits. It wasn't that. It was, it's really bad form that she sort of let the cat out of the bag with being a rabid anti-Semite and all. I wish she would sort of walk that back. So Ilhan Omar doubled down in response to Batya Ungar-Sargon, who again is extraordinarily left-wing. So Batya tweeted, would love to know who Ilhan Omar thinks is paying American politicians to be pro-Israel, though I think I can guess. And Ilhan Omar tweeted back, AIPAC. That would be the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. Number one, AIPAC does not really make a lot of contributions to politicians. The amount that they've spent on lobbying on a yearly basis, something like $3.5 million, okay, that is nothing compared to the beer lobby, which spends $20 million a year. Second of all, J Street spends a nearly equivalent amount of money on left-wing politicians. The reason that AIPAC gives money, that they lobby, the reason that they lobby politicians is for a particular purpose. But if you think that their lobbying, number one, is restricted to people who are supremely pro-Israel, that is not true. They had Barack Obama speak at the AIPAC conference controversially. They had Joe Biden speak at the AIPAC conference controversially. The only person I'm aware who has not been able to speak at the AIPAC conference was Ron Paul. So they allow pretty much everybody to speak at the AIPAC conference. AIPAC does not own the United States Congress by dint of paying people. This is sort of a similar trope to the idea that people in America are pro-gun because the NRA is signing them checks. Except now it's the nefarious Jews spending their shekels, the shekel masters spending their shekels, trying to convince Republican Congress people. Now, I have to mention, one of the weird things about this particular notion is the idea that Congress people are able to be bought and paid for. If that were the case, wouldn't you think that AIPAC would just ratchet up its spending and buy a bunch of Democrats? Why is it that everybody who's always worried about campaign spending is themselves, those people